Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
Good to be on the show, Nate. Looking forward to the good topics we have here. Super Bowl's coming up this weekend. Getting excited for the big game.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. We got a lot of topics to talk about. Couple coaching topics we have that are going to come on later on in the show. But because it is now Super Bowl week, it's time to talk about some of the Super Bowl teams and players that are playing in the matchup coming Sunday. Let's start with Brock Purdy, because a lot of people, including myself, have talked about how Brock Purdy is not the most valuable player on his team. And during Super Bowl Media Day, which was last night, 49ers and Chiefs both talked separately. Purdy's embracing the Mr. Irrelevant role, saying, quote, if it's gonna be Mr. Irrelevant, I'm going to continue to wear it with pride. Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft. He's been performing excellently since he came into the NFL, but we have to be realistic. His team is incredibly good, so that's why people might be doubting him and calling him a game manager and playing off of Christian McCaffrey's ability, Devo's ability, George Kittle's ability, and definitely help with the tackle, I'm forgetting his name, Trent Williams on the offensive line, and also a great defense. I want to know, do you think a Super Bowl win over Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and these Kansas City Chiefs will silence any and all of Brock Purdy's doubters?
I would say yes, for sure. I mean, to beat Kansas City is going to be a pretty big task. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. They made it through the playoffs here, beat some very good teams. Was probably maybe doubted a little bit about whether they could make it all the way this year. Much like, as we were talking about, Nate, the Patriots in 2018, right, where they, leading up to the end of the season, they didn't play all that well. And Tom Brady even said after they made the playoffs, said, well, everyone thinks we suck, so we'll have to, it's going to be fun. That's what he said. And they made it all the way through. In fact, we went to one of the games. We went to the San Diego. Then they were the San Diego Chargers, I believe, right?
So, yeah.
They were the San Diego Chargers, and Patriots blew them out. So this game, I think Brock Purdy has got his head on his shoulders. He said last night, life isn't about you. It's about being part of something bigger than yourself. I'm honored and thankful to be playing in the Super Bowl. So I thought those were pretty good comments from him, and very professional. And he says, if I'm going to be considered Mr. Irrelevant, then I'm going to continue to wear that label with pride. So he's a humble guy. Most of the players on the team say they wouldn't be there without him. They call him a game manager. Well, what is game management? We've been debating that back and forth. A lot of like Cam Newton criticizing players for being just game managers and not being ones that can really make a difference. I would say he labels Brock Purdy a game manager, and Patrick Mahomes is somebody that is out there that can make a big difference in a game. He's not a game manager. So we'll get to see those two going up against one another, and it's going to be very exciting. And I'm not a Brock Purdy doubter. I think he'll rise to the occasion and play well. Whether he can beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not so sure.
So, as it's been well documented, I have said that Christian McCaffrey is the most valuable player on the 49ers, and I'm still sticking with that because a perfect example would be when Purdy threw 4 interceptions. McCaffrey still was the best player on offense and scored the only touchdown when Brock Purdy wasn't benched on that team. But I will say this. If Brock Purdy comes out here and throws for, let's say, as he's been doing, over 300 yards and a few touchdowns and outplays Mahomes, it should silence a lot of people, and probably including me. But that's the big thing. If he throws for like 270, has a touchdown, but we realize that Debo took off for a 60-yard touchdown, Christian McCaffrey goes for 45 yards, Brandon Ayuk has another 50-yard off-the-helmet catch, well, then you have to add a little context, and maybe it's 270 yards. If we're talking about strictly just him getting the ball to receivers, maybe it's 125 instead of these guys taking off. So when it comes to, should it silence everybody? It probably won't. And that's the thing. Regardless if it's my opinion or anyone else's opinion, there'll always be people who doubt Brock Purdy. There's still people who doubt Joe Burrow. There's people who rightfully so have doubts about Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence and a lot of quarterbacks. Brock Purdy's something special, though. Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft. He comes in this season. He finally lost his first game when he was healthy. He was undefeated up until that point, and then you see them, a huge, massive downturn. And then what do we see from them? They get smothered by the Ravens. They bounce back. Kyle Shanahan, being down, never won a game when down by 5 points or more in the fourth quarter. Does it in back-to-back games. So they're doing something new. They're doing something special. And if Brock Purdy outplays Mahomes, which I'm going to bring up the numbers for Friday's show when we make our picks for the Super Bowl, Mahomes has not had great performances in any Super Bowl. Whether he won it or lost it, he's never played a great Super Bowl through and through. So I think there is an opportunity for Brock Purdy to outplay Patrick Mahomes. And with this team, with the way the 49ers are constructed, I think there's a pretty good shot they beat Mahomes. Now, what we saw from the Chiefs this season was never count them out. They could look like one of the worst teams in the NFL, have no receiving core, have a bunch of issues, offensive tackles, dropping the ball, sometimes not effective run game, although I think Pacheco had a great year. Defense comes up small sometimes in big moments. But when it matters in the playoffs, they all show up. So this is probably one of the hardest picks probably either of us have to do for, the Super Bowl. Because the 49ers have so much talent. The Chiefs, on the other hand, they have Mahomes, Kelsey, an offensive line that's picking up, a defense that's playing out of its mind and controlling every single game, and Andy Reid is the head coach. But I do think if Purdy outplays Mahomes, I think it should silence a lot of people doubting him whether or not, because there's still some people who don't believe that Purdy's the answer going forward. I think it should definitely doubt those. It should silence those doubters, because if he comes out and wins the Super Bowl, obviously he's going to be your quarterback moving forward.
Well, he's only in his second year.
Right.
I mean, this is not many players in their second year, a quarterback no less, make it to the Super Bowl.
There's 6 of them in NFL history.
6 in NFL history made it in their second year.
Yeah.
It would be Tom Brady would be one.
Yep. Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Big Ben, Colin Kaepernick, and Russell Wilson. And then it would be Brock Purdy.
So
as well.
Patrick Mahomes didn't make it in his second year.
Correct, because 2017, then 2018, Brady stopped him mid in his third year.
Yeah. So it's going to be a great game, and I think we'll see how Brock Purdy does. I think he'll have a good game. I think this game, really, in terms of the pressure, there's less on him than there is on Kyle Shanahan. I mean, he has been to the Super Bowl already and lost it once.
As the OC, it was in the Falcons. They lost to Brady in the comeback.
Right, and he was the OC, and some of those calls, man, in that game, they could have put it away just running the ball, and they were out there passing it. So I think I think the pressure's more on him than it is on any other member of the 49ers team, because he really needs to get a win here if he really wants to be considered one of the great coaches, which he appears to be. This would be something he's got to have on his resume, a Super Bowl win.
Right. I think it would be very, very impressive if Brock Purdy does actually win this game, because he'd be one of there's 4 quarterbacks currently that have won the Super Bowl in their second year, which is Warner, Brady, Roethlisberger, and Russell Wilson. He would join that group. And if he joins that group, especially at that draft pick, then he joins 2 other players that were very, very low draft picks and to win, Brady and Kurt Warner.
Yeah.
He would be the last pick in the draft. Brady was pick 199. Kurt Warner, I believe, went undrafted. So I do think there's a lot of pressure on Purdy, but honestly, I think rightfully so, Purdy should have a lot of confidence, because what he's been doing since he came into the NFL has been incredibly special. Where I think that people are still going to argue that, Purdy isn't all that is if you compare him to the other quarterbacks in the league. We went through it last time on the show. We went through a bunch of the top quarterbacks in the league, and we said, would you take Purdy over this guy? Now, if he wins a Super Bowl, and we have to obviously see how he plays, but people still think of him as this average quarterback. I think if he goes down and wins, I would still consider him a fringe top 10 quarterback.
I agree. I think
but he's not solidified in the top 10 for me, though, regardless if he wins or loses.
I think he is a top 10 quarterback, and I think that for a good part of the season, he was in consideration for the MVP award.
Up until the Ravens game, he was the MVP, basically. I know Dak had a couple weeks.
So that's pretty good.
Couple weeks. I would definitely say so. But I just think if you take a look at the body of work of the 49ers, and this is sort of a positive and a negative, the positive is you're going to win a lot of games with the way that this roster is built offensively and defensively. The negative part of this, at least in Brock Purdy's case, is you're going to have people who are talking about, oh, he's getting carried by his team. That's the negative side of this. The positive is you're going to win a lot of games. The negative is you might not get a lot of credit for it. And I think where, some people may be still confused by this or still doubting is the fact that he was the last pick in the draft. If he was a first-round pick, people would be praising him. Let's be honest here.
Well, it's pretty amazing.
It is.
That he was the last pick in the draft,
and he's doing
his
this.
Second year, he's going to the Super Bowl.
But I'm saying, if he was the first pick, people would be like, yeah.
You know what? It could have been two. This could be the second in a row if he hadn't gotten hurt in the NFC Championship game last year, right? He was knocked out of that game with that elbow injury pretty early in the game. And there's no way he could throw the ball. So, I give him a lot of credit. He's accomplished a lot. You look at the stats, they're pretty good. And,
they are.
And he's got a chance to win the Super Bowl here. We'll see what happens.
I just think, though, if he was a first-round pick, or at least not the last pick in the draft, people would be expecting this from him.
Oh, yeah. They'd have a lot different view of him. They wouldn't be calling him game manager. They wouldn't be calling him Mr. Irrelevant. They would
definitely not be Mr. Irrelevant,
yeah.
But I think this team, like I just mentioned, is a positive and a negative. The talent makes you seem less.
What do you think about the point spread in the game?
2.5. I'm going to be honest. The Chiefs have been underdogs throughout the entire playoffs, basically. I'm terrified if I pick the 49ers. I don't exactly have a pick at this current moment, but
I don't either.
I don't love the fact that what the Chiefs have been doing, and then the 49ers, how shaky they've been looking in each of the first halves. And honestly, in the Packer game, it was the entire game up until the last drive. I don't know how they're 2.5-point favorites. I think this was 1.5 at one point. And
my feeling is if they got behind 24-7 against the Chiefs, there's no way they would win the game.
Oh, absolutely not. No,
absolutely not.
And that's the difference between what the Chiefs have done historically with Mahomes and Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, as well as the coach. Right. It's the difference of coaching and culture and experience, really, and that's something that Jared Goff, while he's been to a Super Bowl, it's not been consecutive playoff appearances and 6 straight conference championship games like Mahomes. So there's a difference there. All right, let's get into this one. We're going to the NBA. We're going to the association, and this one is a bit of a controversial topic when it comes to players and fans and rules and everything like that. So this season, for the first time in NBA history, really, the NBA and the NBA PA, it's in the CBA now. There's a new 65-game rule, which basically says a player has to play 65 games to be eligible for basically end of the season awards, which includes MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved Player, and the All NBA teams and All Defensive teams. Now, a lot of players like Joel Embiid, Draymond Green, Tyrese Halliburton, Jimmy Butler, Jamal Murray, they're all very close or out of eligibility for the 65-game limit that they have, the threshold they have to reach in order to be eligible for those end of season awards. Now, Tyrese Halliburton has been outspoken about this, as well as Draymond Green. As you see the quote there, Tyrese Halliburton says, quote, "I think it's a stupid rule, like plenty of the guys in the league, but this is what the owners want. So as players, we got to do our job and play in 65 games if we're able to," which is the case. So I want to know.
Okay.
I was gonna, do you agree with the criticisms from these players on the 65-game rule?
First, I'd like to say, the injury to Embiid is going to be tough on Philadelphia. So far, they're 4-11 without him. He's averaging 35.3 points a game, 11.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists. He had one game where he had 70 points, 18 rebounds against the Spurs. So the guy's having a fantastic year. In terms of the 65 game rule, it's not only 65 games, you have to play 20 minutes in each game.
Correct.
So if you play, 70 games, but you had 10 minutes and 7 or 8 of them, then you don't qualify. So it's almost 80% of the games you got to be in. I think it's good for the fans, right? Because they pay that big ticket prices these days to go see these games. They want to see the best players play, and resting players for the playoffs and things like that, or having a night off after a game the day before, things like that. That's not going to happen as often. And I think the players' gripe is that it forces them to maybe play through some injuries. But if they're injured bad enough, they're not going to be able to play. So last year there were 15 players that made the All-NBA team, where 5 wouldn't have qualified for this 65-game rule. Giannis, Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Damian Lillard, and LeBron James. So those are some big names, right, that wouldn't have qualified for the awards. So it's a little bit controversial. It also probably hurts some players' chances for a Supermax contract.
Right? Tyrese Halliburton's one of them. He's going to lose out on potentially $41 million.
Yeah. So I can see why the players have some issues with it, but I can see the owner's point of view and also the NBA's point of view. They want to have those best players out there playing regularly so that the fans can see them.
And that's where I'm going to disagree with the players. The first thing I'll say is it's in the CBA, which means the NBA, the owners and everybody, and the NBA PA, the Players Association, they had to agree on this. So the players agreed on this too. So it's sort of, dealing with the consequences. Take a look at this. Think about this first off. The NBA implemented the in-season tournament. We have never seen more star power play each game than during the in-season tournament. The Lakers looked like the NBA Finals winners when they were in that in-season tournament. LeBron playing out of his mind, Anthony Davis playing out of his mind, and the Pacers, look at what they do. They were the highest scoring team in the NBA, which they still are, but the level of play was heightened because there was this new incentive for cash reasons and just to say that you won the inaugural in-season tournament. Check this out. 71% of star players, all stars or all NBA players from the past 3 seasons, are on track to play 65 or more games this season, up from 47% last year. So the idea that teams are putting out their players more and the players are playing more is true. Embiid, which he won the MVP last season, and it was unfortunate he has this meniscus injury. He played the second fewest games in NBA history for an MVP winner. And we could really credit this to Greg Popovich and his load management scheme. When they beat the Heat in the NBA Finals, I believe no player averaged more than 30 minutes or 30 minutes or more. So he was constantly rotating guys. And now people like LeBron took that as like, okay, it's conditioning, it's everything like that. So I think this is smart because as fans of the NBA, we don't want to go to a game expecting to see players like, for instance, if you're a Los Angeles Lakers fan, you go to Crypto.com Arena to see LeBron play, to see Anthony Davis play, or you want to go see Kawhi play, Paul George play, Russell Westbrook if you're a fan of his. You want to see him play. You don't want to see the backups play, or you don't want to see LeBron, take basically the night off and play 20-something minutes just to get his game in. You want to see him play as efficiently as he could and as great as he can in each game. And that's where I think from a fan's perspective, this is required. It's 65 games. You're getting paid millions of dollars to play basketball. You're not getting paid hundreds of thousands, if even that, to sit in a cubicle. You're going out there and playing sports. And this also, I would also it requires more. It requires a significant more time in training, in healing, in getting your body into shape to play NBA basketball. So because you agreed to it, it's in the CBA, which you agreed to sign, which the Players Association agreed to. Yeah, keep your body in shape. And yeah, it might suck that the first year that this is implemented, Joel Embiid has an unfortunate meniscus injury. But this is to stop players from sitting out when they're not hurt. LeBron's done that. Anthony Davis has done that. Steph Curry's done that. You have a lot of these star players, which the NBA makes billions of dollars off of, star power, on prime time. You expect LeBron James versus Steph Curry. Oh, no, but tonight, report comes out, Steph Curry's out on rest, LeBron James rest. What? I don't get it. To implement this, you can't miss. I think you can't miss 18 games for this to obviously qualify, or 17 games for it to qualify. So I like this rule. It's a good rule for fans. It's good for ratings on TV. The only unfortunate thing would be is just stay healthy in the NBA. So the only negative is you have to stay healthy. You have to play the games, which you're getting paid millions of dollars to do.
Right. So it's really not asking that much, right? And they did sign off on it. So
correct.
Some people are always going to complain about new rules and their impact. And, I get it. I think that, most players that are really good, they want that Supermax contract. That's worth a lot of money to them. If they don't get an award, or they would definitely have qualified for the award because they played 64 games, and that they had 20 minutes or more, and that's too bad. If you miss it by 1 or 2 games, it's a shame. But that's the rule, and they'll have to find a way to deal with it.
What I find funny is that Draymond Green said,
he's a complainer anyway.
He said guys didn't face those rules before. So because they wanted to play basketball. How many seasons did John Stockton play all 82 games? How many minutes in games did James Worthy play? Jerry West. All these players played the games. They didn't sit out due to rest. I mean, you saw Kobe Bryant. He had a torn Achilles. He was shooting free throws. Like, these guys want to play. Now, it could be, the updated idea of health and medicine and all that is saying players should take more rest.
Well, these guys get the best health care of anyone on the planet, right? They have trainers, they have doctors, they get MRIs if there's any question about anything. They have therapy. They have the plasma drugs now that can help with healing a wound. Or a tear. So there's plenty of support out there for them staying healthy, or if they do get injured, to get them rehabbed and back in the game as quickly as possible. So it's not like there isn't a lot of support for them to be in the games and be able to play in the games.
Right, and I think it's just. You're playing basketball and making tens of millions of dollars. A lot of the top players have hundreds of millions of dollars in contractual obligations. All you gotta do is play basketball, and let's say you're making $200 million. You're playing 38 minutes or so, 35 minutes of basketball. Just train your body to endure that, and you play. Some days you play every 2 days for a week. Other days you play back to back, and then you're off a couple days. Some days it's every other day. Train your body. You're getting paid millions of dollars, which means you could be spending a lot of money on your body, on self-care.
There's lots of science around this that says, what the kinds of impact that the players take from jumping and running, and the exertion that they have, and their endurance, and how much fluids they need to be taking in during the game so they don't get dehydrated. The science around this is amazing. And the data around it is amazing. They should be able to stay, if they follow all of that, and the teams have very good trainers and doctors, then they do everything they can to make sure the players are healthy and can play in the games. So they have everything going for them, I think.
Yeah, I would just say this is the first year. It's gonna need to get some. You gotta get warmed up to it.
We'll see if anybody gets an award.
Any big name. You
may
be
these awards may be going to people you say, huh? Who's that guy?
It may be the 6th option on a list of players just because the top 5 are hurt.
Right.
We'll have to wait and see. Let's jump into this topic, though. So there's been a lot of conversation since this guy entered the league that he'll pass the greatest of all time, and that's Patrick Mahomes. There's a lot of debate on, if and maybe when Mahomes passes Brady for the greatest of all time status, with some people saying that because of his ability to play quarterback, that he doesn't need 7 rings to become the greatest of all time. Mahomes was actually asked about passing Brady during the Super Bowl media day yesterday, and this is what he had to say.
I'm not even close to halfway, so I haven't put a lot of thought into it. Your goal is to be the best player that you can be. I know I'm blessed to be around a lot of great players around me. And so right now it's doing whatever I can to beat a great 49ers team and trying to get that 3rd ring. And then if you ask me that question in like 15 years, and I'll see if I can get close to 7, but 7 seems like a long ways away still.
So the question is, would a Super Bowl win against the 49ers on Sunday, open the door for Mahomes passing Brady already?
Probably not.
You don't think so?
No way. He's not even close, right? He's played 7 years in the league, right? This will be his 5th Super Bowl. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This would be the fourth Super Bowl, 5th year. Yeah.
5th time.
Lost to Brady.
And he's lost.
Right.
He's 2-2, right? He's 2-2. If he's been in 4 Super Bowls, he's won 2. This will be his 3rd.
No, he made the 3 Super Bowls because there was 2017 he didn't play.
3. Okay,
2018
so he's 2 out of
Brady
3.
stopped him. 19 he beat the 49ers.
Yeah, so
20
he's 2-1.
He's 2-1.
2-1. This is his 4th Super Bowl, so he could be 3-1. Brady is 7-3
Correct.
in Super Bowls, right? So
and went 3-0 in his first 3
yeah, and he also made it to 9 Super Bowls.
with the Well, 9 with the Patriots and then
9 with the Patriots and
One
1
with
with
Tampa.
the. So he made it to 10 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mahomes has got a long way to go, Nate. He's got a long way to go. Brady's played 20 years in the NFL and quality years every year. He played well every year. He made it to playoffs all but 2 years of his career.
2002,
And the year he was hurt.
2011, and 2019 he made it. 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years out of
24, I believe.
24 years. So, and the records he has, many of them not going to be, I don't see how they're going to be broken. He has, 3 MVP years? I think he got the MVP and was gypped out of a couple others.
2021.
He has, 4 Super Bowl MVP, 5 Super Bowl MVPs.
Deion Branch and Julian Edelman, the only ones.
Well, he got gypped out of 2 others.
I don't know. The Julian Edelman one,
Julian Edelman one, I think is okay, but the Deion Branch one, I mean, he had a lot of yards and stuff, but who threw him the ball, huh?
You can say that about Edelman too, though.
Yeah.
But,
So I think Mahomes got a long way to go here. I don't think he's going to be considered the GOAT if he wins the Super Bowl this year.
I want to put a little bit of context into this, and I'm not saying this will never happen. It would take Mahomes 12 years, averaging 5,036 yards and 37 touchdowns each of those 12 years to match Brady in the regular season. I don't think Mahomes is going to average 5,036 yards and 37 touchdowns for 12 straight years. Now, will he eventually pass Brady based on the way the NFL is looking? There is definitely a chance. And even in Super Bowls, this is probably the only guy that's close enough to do it. And what I am concerned about, and which is a very realistic argument, I would say, and I've mentioned it before, but I think this is the perfect opportunity to talk about it, is Brady the next Bill Russell? Where it comes to, when we argue who's the greatest basketball player of all time, we say LeBron, we say Michael Jordan. We never say Kareem, who, by the way, has 6 rings. We don't talk about Magic, he's got 5. LeBron's got 4. Jordan has 6. Them combined doesn't even hit Bill Russell, who has 11. We never argue Bill Russell's the greatest of all time. Brady, when you talk about who has the most Super Bowl wins, franchise players, you start with Tom Brady and then you list franchises. So what I think people are going to argue is Mahomes, because of his talent, because of what we've seen, because of what we probably will see down the line, barring any career-ending or season-ending injuries, is that Mahomes has the best opportunity to pass Brady in the stats category of passing touchdowns and passing yards. But I genuinely think 2 things are going to come out of Mahomes' career, and then Brady and Mahomes, up against one another is Brady will become Bill Russell. Then it might be Mahomes and maybe Joe Burrow, maybe whoever else you want to put up there, the next coming. Could it be Caleb Williams? Probably not. But what I mean is that Mahomes is probably Jordan. Who's the LeBron? I think right now it's Brady, and then it's Mahomes. Brady is Jordan, Mahomes is maybe LeBron. But I think at some point, I think it's going to be, if he wins the Super Bowl, maybe we'll see it immediately. Brady will move into Bill Russell. Then Mahomes will, whoever you think is the greatest basketball player of all time, Mahomes moves into that player. And then the next player will be the next greatest of all time eventually. It could be Joe Burrow, could be Josh Allen, could be whoever you want to dream of. But I genuinely think people are going to start arguing how Brady is now Bill Russell, where he has all the rings, and back then he had all the stats, rebounds, whatever you want to say. But Mahomes is more talented, could throw a better ball, more mobile. I'm not necessarily agreeing with that, but I'm projecting
That's an interesting argument, which I don't agree with. Okay,
I'm not saying I agree with it either, but I'm just presenting that.
I would say Mahomes' chances of catching Brady are slim.
Really?
Yeah, because Tom Brady had Bill Belichick as a coach.
Correct.
And football is a team sport. Okay, Andy Reid ain't going to be around for another 10 years, 10 or 12 years. He's already, I think he's 70 years old now, isn't he? He's close to it. And there was talk that he might retire after this season. So he isn't going to be around that many years.
He's 65 right now.
He's 65, okay. So maybe he is around for 5 more years.
Could be.
Who maybe longer. I don't know. I heard there was talk he might retire after this year. So I think that the chances of him being around like Belichick was for Brady are slim. Belichick was there for Brady for 20 years. And football is a team sport. If the quarterback doesn't win it all on his own, you got to have all the pieces, a lot of good pieces around you. You got to have a really good defense, good receivers. You got to have a decent offensive line, good running backs. You got to have everything clicking in order to win a Super Bowl. So I question whether the Chiefs are going to have the durability that the Patriots organization had and the leadership for the longevity that Tom Brady had.
I'll also say this. We saw how Travis Kelce was the security blanket for Mahomes. Well, Mahomes and Kelce weren't there, but what I'm trying to say is that Kelce's probably going to retire in a couple years. Brady was already in his prime by then. Mahomes is still early in his career. Kelce's sort of at the end of it. If Kelce's gone, and let's say Kelce isn't there and they have the same receiving core, I know I said this even when Kelce was there, but I really don't think he goes 9 for 9 with Kelce basically immediately in against the Ravens. I don't see that. So I don't know if Kelce's going to want to be there for another 5 years. He'll be 39 years old.
I don't think he's going 5.
I don't. He may not even go 2.
Yeah, well,
he might not even go 2.
I definitely think he'll be there next year.
I do as well,
particularly if they win.
Right,
if they win.
Right. And even Gronk was there after 2020 when they won the Super Bowl in Tampa. He wasn't there after 21 when they lost to the Rams. But I don't think, and maybe the NFL's different, where it is about rings. The NBA, we know the NBA is about rings. Kind of.
I think the NBA might be a little bit more than just about rings because LeBron has lost a lot of it.
Right. It could be stats as well. Where it's the numbers.
Stats are important too.
The NFL though, is it a team sport?
Yeah, of course it's a team sport.
So should Super Bowl wins?
I mean, we only have one quarterback that can throw it and catch it to himself. That's
we saw Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson did it this year in the playoffs. He threw the ball and caught it too.
Right,
and he could run and pass it as well. So he's the MVP this year, and I'm sure he's feeling very sad that he's not in this big game, and I'm afraid that the offense of the Ravens have nobody to blame but themselves for that one.
I would definitely say so. So let's figure out when Mahomes might become the GOAT. Does he need 7 rings, 8 rings to pass Brady? Because I'll ask you that question, then I'll follow it up. When will Mahomes become the GOAT?
I don't think he ever will. I don't think
even if he gets 8 rings.
If he got 8 rings, yeah, but I don't think he'll ever get them. I mean, as he said in his thing, that 7 looks like it's an awfully long way off.
Right.
He's going for number 3 right now. Yeah. And maybe it's not totally about rings, Maybe there's the stats come into play as well and the longevity, being able to play 24 years.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Hardly anybody else has ever done that before. Certainly not a quarterback.
Right.
So Tom Brady is he's unique. I don't think they'll be matched in my life, and certainly not in my lifetime. I don't know about yours, so we'll see. But I think he's the GOAT and always will be to me. I've got the
Patriots sweatshirt on.
I got his picture up behind me here, so I'm a little biased. I just thankful that I was a Patriots fan all along and that he was drafted by the Patriots, number 199, and had the career he had. And the Patriots had the organization that put the players on the field to help Brady achieve those goals.
Here's where I'm like, we're doing a little bit of revisionist history here. Brady was not even considered the greatest quarterback of all time after 3 rings, because he still needed to pass Montana at number 4. Even at
Montana is he's pretty credible,
right? But here's
candidate for GOAT as well.
Here's where the argument gets a little bit hazy. After 4, people are like, okay, Brady, he's what, 4-2 in Super Bowls. Montana was 4-0. That's where the LeBron Jordan 6-0. LeBron was what? I think he's 4-6 in finals. Okay, how about 5? Oh, he's not the greatest player of all time. He got 6. Okay, he passed Haley for the most Super Bowls a player's had in a career. He's the greatest quarterback of all time now. It wasn't until 7 where if you talk about Super Bowls and including everything, you start with him, then go to franchises that were like, he's probably the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, and I think
we're jumping the gun a little bit.
I think that's even more credible when you think that when he left the Patriots, he went to another team and managed to win the Super Bowl in his first year with a new team.
Right, in the COVID year.
Yeah, in the COVID year.
With what came out later, a torn MCL. We forgot about that part.
Yeah.
That got sort of swept under the rug a little bit.
Yeah. So I think you look at his career, anybody who 50 years, 100 years from now reads about Tom Brady and what he accomplished and all the stats and everything and watches some of the film, will say that guy was the greatest of all time. I really think that's going to be the case.
And I'm not going to disagree with you there, but Mahomes' career averages, by the way, remember I said 5,036 yards and 37 touchdowns.
There's no way he's going to do that.
Well, here's the crazy...
you know what? The game's changed a little bit. I think that during Brady's career, the rules and such favored the passing game more than it does now, for part of his career at least. And he took total advantage of that with seasons where he had well over 5,000 yards passing. Mahomes has to average now 5,000 yards for 12 years, you said?
12 straight years.
And 37 touchdowns a year to get there, to catch Brady?
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen.
Well,
I just don't think it happened.
Here's the crazy number and why I think he would be the closest. If you go for, an average of 7, let's say Mahomes plays every single game for 12 straight years, he would average 5,036 yards, check, 39 touchdowns, check. So if he goes 12 more years and plays 17 games based on his career averages so far, he would pass Brady in 12 years. Wow. Or he'd tie Brady in 12 years.
He's a different kind of quarterback. He relies on his mobility more than Tom Brady did.
Brady had no mobility.
A total pocket passer. Mahomes is a different breed. I don't see him getting those kinds of stats for 12 more years. I just think that his mobility is going to decline over time.
Maybe.
And whether he can adjust and play the pocket passer role to get those kinds of stats remains to be seen.
Because what we've seen from Mahomes is he likes to jump around left to right side of the field. If the pocket might collapse, he's ready to run, move outside the pocket to make a crazy throw.
Or run. He has a lot of success that way, too.
Right. No. So it's going to be fun to see, how that career matches up. But I do think people are going to start thinking about Tom Brady in the Bill Russell type where he's got all the rings. But then you have guys who play better or have more whatever, better shooting, better passing, better dribbling, a higher IQ, basketball IQ. And honestly, Brady overcame his lack of mobility. That shouldn't be a negative. That should be more of a positive because he didn't need his legs to define his success. He didn't need to be able to juke players to have his success. He'd need to run around, roll to the right constantly to find his success. His mobility, he didn't have it, but he overcame that in an NFL that constantly was growing, and some of the most dominant players, at least towards the end of his career, were more mobile quarterbacks. So, who knows? But I do think that Mahomes, I think obviously, is the closest to get to Tom Brady and pass him as the greatest quarterback of all time. All right, we're going to take a break. A little sponsorship by NordVPN. In a world where online privacy matters more than ever, NordVPN has your back. With its military-grade encryption and lightning-fast servers, you could surf, shop, and stream without a worry. But it's not just about privacy. It's also about freedom. NordVPN allows you to connect to any one of their 5,000 servers across 60 countries. Whether you're a worldwide traveler, a content creator, or just someone who values their digital space, NordVPN is a must-have tool in your online arsenal. And guess what? NordVPN's offering an exclusive deal that provides you with top-of-the-line online safety and security for up to 63% off with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So why wait? Don't compromise your online safety and freedom. Join the millions of people, including myself, who trust NordVPN and experience the internet the way it's meant to be, safe and open. The Harvey Hour will be back. We're talking about Boomer Esiason. Apparently, Bill Belichick got the Falcons job and turned it down. And also, Mike Vrabel, too big, too intimidating to coach in the NFL? We'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic. So this is a fascinating one. We've talked about it a couple times. Why doesn't Bill Belichick have a head coaching job? Who's going to interview him? Why are only the Falcons interviewing him? It was very, very confusing, and now it comes out. Boomer Esiason said on the Boomer and Geo show that, quote, I was told yesterday, and I do believe it from the source that I got it from, that supposedly Falcons owner Arthur Blank was bought into Bill Belichick and could have offered him the job. I don't know why guys say no, but an NFL executive basically told me that they believe that Arthur Blank offered Bill Belichick the job. Now, we know Belichick is not a head coach this season so far. Who knows if someone gets fired mid-season, would they want Bill Belichick in there? But Bill Belichick is not the head coach of the Falcons. They went back to Raheem Morris, which makes this very, very interesting. I want to know, why are you surprised Bill Belichick would turn down the head coaching job with the Atlanta Falcons?
I don't think this is a totally true. It's not really confirmed. I read what Boomer Esiason said. It was a little sketchy. I'm not sure that that's really confirmed that Bill Belichick was offered the job. It's kind of hypothetical in a way.
Really?
And he heard it from some NFL exec. Well, what does Arthur Blank say about it? He's probably
not
never going to tell anybody. And my guess is if he was offered the job, the people behind Blank who are scared to death of having Bill Belichick come in and basically render their jobs useless and have them sitting there with not much to do and being upset by that, kind of talked him into some sort of arrangement where Belichick is just the coach and not have any personnel decision making. So I think that's probably, if he was offered the job, I bet it was a qualified offer. And Belichick felt like he didn't want that kind of a situation. And there's also this guy, Rich McKay, who Belichick had never had much respect for. McKay is the he was a chair of the competition committee, and Belichick had some criticism for him. So those two guys don't like one another. I'm sure Rich McKay didn't want Bill Belichick in the room and on the team. And I bet he got to Blank, and they made a big mistake in my mind.
I just find it funny how Belichick, during that end of the run with the Patriots conference, he looked suited up, sort of promoting himself to be the next head coach. There's reports out that came after he was fired that, Mac Jones was more so of a staff hiring than it was a Belichick hiring, but Belichick promised to be, more cooperative with the staff, and so he went out and drafted Mac Jones based on what the staff told him to. And it sounded like, through reports, that Belichick was open to giving up some of the power to remain the head coach of the Patriots. I wonder if that was the same with the Falcons. Maybe in order to keep his job, he was willing to do that. But to be hired at another one, would he want that power? Probably. And I do think it's a bit worrisome that the coaching staff or the staff with the Falcons were afraid of their jobs because they probably knew or they expected Belichick to fire a lot of those people to bring in some of his own staff, which I don't know if that's a great idea based on how the Patriots have looked the past 4 seasons with, who Belichick has brought in that are his friends and people who he knew and former draft picks. It wasn't that great. And we now take a look at the situation where Belichick at age 72 is unemployed in the NFL. And I don't think if people weren't going to hire a 72-year-old head coach who has won 6 rings, that they're going to go out and hire a 73-year-old coach who has 6 rings, who is coming off of a season where he wasn't employed, and then the season prior to that has looked horrible and had his worst record since he got with the Patriots. So I don't think this is a good look. If Belichick was truly offered the job as, Boomer Esiason sort of said, I think Belichick made a massive mistake in that regard. And also the Commanders, too. It seemed like there was some very minor discussions there. Belichick, I think, turned it down immediately. Or it was something along the lines of that, where him and the Commanders talked, or whatever the case may be.
I didn't know about that. I think that it's a qualified offer if there was an offer, and I'm sure Belichick looked at that and said, I don't really want that. I want to have the same kind of control I have with New England. He may be, as he gets older and he's looking for a job, he may have to compromise on that a little bit going forward if he wants to get back into the league as a head coach. He'll probably also looked at it and said, this crew they've got, if I'm giving up a lot of power that I have and being beholden to these guys that some of them I don't like anyway, it's not worth it. I'm going to sit it out, see what happens during the season. Maybe a coach gets fired during the season and they bring him in. Doesn't happen very often that way. Usually they give it to an interim or somebody who's on the team. There's going to be 6 or 7 positions open next year probably. I think that he'll be considered then. And I think that he'll use the time this year to get into the media part of it, and he'll be traveling around talking with teams, and maybe that's how he'll find his next position as a head coach. We'll have to wait and see.
I think if I'm Belichick, and maybe this is the case. Maybe it's not Rich McKay. Maybe it's not about the power. Maybe it's I thought that, and I think this is now the case because of his age, he's now just going for wins. He's going for the 15 wins. Now, I believe it's even farther than that if you don't include the postseason. I think he might be 31 or something like that, 27 away if you include just the regular season.
Yeah, but who cares about that? It's going to be the 15 wins. It's going to be winning the most games in total for your whole coaching career.
And that's why I think, and maybe this is a great move for Belichick.
It's even more valuable when you think about it because 33 or so of those wins are playoff wins.
Right.
Nobody's even close to that. No one's even close.
Andy Reid is because of the Chiefs' success lately. He's getting closer by the season, but honestly, realistically, if a team is willing to hire Belichick, next season would be perfect for Belichick in the case of getting the 15 wins. Now, it'll be a question again of what's Belichick in it for. Is he in the coach 5 years, or is it just for the wins?
I think he would have a good chance, actually, with the Falcons when you look at that division.
With the division,
right?
yes, with the division.
The fact that the Falcons were one game from the playoffs this past year with the quarterback that they had. And I think sure Belichick could improve their defense some, right? Maybe they bring in another quarterback through a trade, or probably not through the draft because it would be a rookie. But I think he could get them to 9 wins pretty easily. I think he could give them the 9 wins. So 2 seasons, he's got his 15 wins easy.
Right. I think if we take a look at next season, though, Philadelphia might be moving on. Cowboys probably will be moving on. The Giants maybe, but I don't think so. Jets probably. You have a couple of these options that could come available.
Maybe
Arizona. I don't think Arizona's a good job though, and Jonathan Gannon's was just a rookie head coach. There are a couple teams that potentially
There's
have
definitely
have
going to be
openings.
6 or 7
A lot in the
teams. There
NFC.
always is.
Right. And then I don't expect this, but if Dan Campbell gambles too much, maybe ownership thinks about moving off of him.
He's safe for at least 2 more years.
Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. But I do think Eagles, Cowboys, those are 2 very good jobs. And also the Giants, depending on who they draft and who they want to develop, and for just,
I think
nostalgia
Belichick would be very
purposes,
interested in the Giants job.
he's still close to the Mara family, too. So
They love him. And New York loves as a coach, they hated Belichick when he was with the Patriots because he won so much, and he beat. But the Giants have got to love him. The Giants beat him twice in the Super Bowl.
right.
And he was with them for 2 Super Bowl wins during their glory days.
Yeah.
So
Lawrence Taylor.
yeah,
Yikes.
Bill Parcells.
Yeah. So I don't know. Belichick maybe made the right move here, but it is funny how he decided to turn down this head coaching job if he was indeed offered it.
Maybe 72 or 3 isn't that old anymore, Nate.
You tell me.
For some of us older guys, we're rooting for Belichick. We like to see somebody a little older out there leading the charge.
That's maybe. It doesn't happen very often. You see a 70-year-old coach in the NFL coaching 5 years. It's not as common as maybe you would like it to be. But let's move into some other coaching news. So Diana Rossini, she had a very, very interesting quote which read, I had a GM at the Senior Bowl who mentioned to me Vrabel's physical ability. That he's a very large human being and can be very intimidating to people in an organization that are going to be part of these decisions. And that is a factor on why he wasn't signed as a head coach.
This is something the GM said to her?
A GM at the Senior Bowl.
That is the craziest comment I have ever heard. I have never heard anything like that.
Our team's going to regret not signing Vrabel to be their next head coach.
Football players are big for most of the time, right? They're big guys. So having a big guy as your head coach might be a good thing. It could be inspiring to people. It might be maybe not to the front office wusses that are overweight and haven't been out on the treadmill very often, right? Maybe that would be intimidating to them, but to the players, I don't think there's any issue there. I think that doesn't mean anything to them, and I think it's one of the weirdest comments I've ever heard.
I think it's very, very fascinating that because of Mike Vrabel's physical size, that was one of the determining factors on whether or not he would be a head coach of a team. Because let me read the quote again. Because it can be very intimidating to people in an organization that are going to be part of these decisions. What about Dan Campbell?
I mean, he's a big dude.
Dan Campbell's a massive dude.
Yeah.
Who played linebacker, and
I thought he was a tight end.
He might have been a tight end. But
I think he's a tight end.
But Dan Campbell is all over the place with his emotions. Mike Vrabel is a much more monotone guy. You don't see him going off and saying biting kneecaps off or whatever, having so much passion. I don't understand why the Lions were perfectly fine with signing Dan Campbell, but an organization wouldn't sign Mike Vrabel. Also, if you're intimidated by him, how about you just look at his reputation as a head coach?
He's a player's coach.
He had, four out of 6 winning seasons? Made the playoffs a number of times, won a couple playoff
55
games.
wins so far in his career.
So I don't understand that because of his size, he would be intimidating to the front office staff because they would be involved in making decisions. I think I agree. This is a crazy comment. This is honestly one of the craziest comments I've ever heard a GM say when talking about the hiring of anybody, whether it be a player, whether it be a coach. I've never heard something like this where a guy who's how big is Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel is 6'4", 260. Dan Campbell, I'm genuinely curious. Dan Campbell is 6'5", 265. So he's bigger.
Huh.
And yet nobody talked about, Dan Campbell's too big to be the head coach of any team.
It's the weirdest comment I've ever heard. I've never heard anybody say anything like that before.
And is the question,
somebody would be intimidated by what was one of the better football players of his era, right? And as a linebacker, Mike Vrabel was very good. Why they would look at him and say, "Wow, you're too big. I'm scared of you, and we're not going to hire you." That's odd.
I don't understand it personally. I would just take a look at the body of work and what he's done for an organization.
No pun, no play on words there. His body of work.
Yeah. That's a good one. The unintentional pun there. But yes, 4 out of 6 winning seasons, made the playoffs a couple of times, won a few playoff games.
Yeah, with a quarterback that is kind of questionable.
Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, very, very weird. And not only that, players love the fact that he's a very players coach.
Yeah,
he built a great culture in Tennessee. And for this to be a factor, whatever team said that, they're going to regret not signing him. I don't care who it is. Whether it be the Commanders, whether it be the Seahawks, whether it be whatever team didn't sign him. I think it's going to be a mistake.
Mm-hmm. I see him.
Maybe the Chargers, because they have Jim Harbaugh. But
I would say he gets a job next year.
I would assume so as well, but I have no idea. Belichick wasn't signed. Carroll wasn't signed. Vrabel wasn't signed this coaching hire. I honestly,
Pete Carroll, he'd like to have another job. He says, "I'm ready to go." He says, "I've got all kinds of energy."
He wanted the Chargers job.
Yeah.
I think, truthfully, the Panthers probably regret it the most. They signed a first-time offensive coordinator that was his first time in a major coordinator role or a major coaching role, and now all of a sudden he went from 1-year OC to now head coach.
The first time he'd ever called the plays.
The first time he was ever in a significant coaching role. That wasn't like a quarterback's coach.
He got a head coaching job.
First time OC. Now all of a sudden he's become the head coach of the Carolina
Panthers. They're counting on him bringing Bryce Young along.
That's what the hope is.
Because he's done well with other quarterbacks that he's coached, right? Russell Wilson.
I believe I believe he coached Herbert as well. I might be wrong. Geno Smith. That's what it is.
Geno Smith, player of the year.
Exactly. And now it's Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and now potentially Bryce Young. I think that was. I don't think that was a good hire. I think I graded it a C-, C+. I think it was somewhere in the C's because I think it wasn't the best option out there.
I think it's risky because he isn't shown that he could kind of coach the whole team.
Right.
It's all about him coaching the quarterback, and that's it. I don't know.
I don't like it at all.
It's a bigger job than that for sure.
Absolutely. I still can't get over it. If Diana Rossini legitimately had a GM tell her this,
maybe she's making it up.
I'm concerned for whatever GM this is because they're intimidated by Mike Vrabel's size. How about you look at his actual what he's done for an organization?
Look at the body of work, right, Nate?
That's what I mean. I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it.
Neither do I.
You're afraid of his 6'4", 261 frame. Is that 6'4", 261? Yeah. I don't get it. Andy Reid. Look how big Andy Reid is.
I know.
I don't get it personally, but that does wrap up today's episode of the Harvey Hour. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Friday, massive show. Chiefs, 49ers. Super Bowl. Let's see if the 49ers are still favored by the end of the week. We will make our picks and break down the Super Bowl game. Who do we think is winning and why?
I'm excited for the Super Bowl, but it's bittersweet. It'll be the end of the football season.
Yeah. We have to wait till about mid-March, then off-season
kicks off. It went by
off.
so fast.
It did. It did go by very, very quickly. So Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, we'll make our Super Bowl predictions along with a bunch of other news, NBA, NFL, MLB, and by the way, there is breaking news in the MLB. Jose Altuve signs a massive deal, 5-year, $125 million contract extension. So there you go. That broke about an hour ago. So there we go. So it is what it is. But yeah, like I said, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Friday, right here on YouTube.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a